You know, for someone who likes to talk so much, I'm really struggling to draw a mouth. How many times is this now? Third time? Do this 3 times? Hello, fellow doodlers. If you're an oldie but a goodie, welcome back. And if you're a first time cutie, welcome. If you love art and shots of yappuccinos, you're in the right place. Because today we are talking a lot, but more specifically, talking about this new art piece that I've been working on called Capturing Joy. I've kind of felt that recently in this world there's been like so much negativity circulating around on the news, on social media, in real life, when someone doesn't turn on their turn signal when changing into your lane aggressively. With all those things, it's so easy to get distracted from the things that really matter, like the things that spark joy in you. And so I thought, what better way to put a smile on your face than by drawing a smile? So then, of course, I went to trusty Pinterest to determine what I wanted to draw, which was this photo of this really gorgeous couple. I don't know if they're actually a couple, but in my imagination, they are. Because I have probably read one too many romance novels in my lifetime, but that is besides the point here, people. The point is, my heart was vibing this photo, and as always, the heart gets what the heart wants. So as you've already kind of seen so far in the time lapse that's been playing, I started with a basic sketch of the couple in just like a regular pencil brush on Procreate. I start off really loosely first, and then I usually like to draw the head first because for me that's what I struggled with the most. And then I go down to the general, I like sort of block out general shapes before I then go in with a heavier line quality to start outlining the defining features of the piece. And then comes my favorite part, rendering. Because even as an adult, my favorite part of the art process is still and will always be coloring. Because there's just something so therapeutic and almost like reassuring about the way where at this point in the process, my brain is like, okay, we've got the base sketch, which is like kind of the hard part, you know? Like mapping out the lay of the land, and then now all you gotta do is to walk the trails, and then you know that if you ever get lost, you just refer back to the map. The map here being the base sketch. Have I gotten lost in the sauce before in rendering? Absolutely. But you know, it's kind of like an adventure. You just try again, see what happens. Going back to what's happening in the art process right now that you're seeing, at this point, I've already went in and put down my first layer of shadows, adding more contour and definition to her face because she needs to look snatched. And then I went back in with a darker shade of gray to color in some of the, well, you know, darker areas of the art piece, for example, like her hair. And then going back in with an even darker shade of gray to add even more depth. So something that I was drawing for the first time or rendering for the first time was facial hair. I don't know why, it was never in my repertoire of things to draw, but this was my first time drawing facial hair and it was an experience. I think it was quite fun. It added like a level of ruggedness to him that otherwise I didn't see clearly when it was just a basic sketch with no facial hair. Yeah, it was different, drawing some lettuce on the face. Also, did you guys know that hair on men can be referred to as lettuce? I just learned this recently from a dude, obviously, and I was like, what? Lettuce? Referring to hair? That was the first time I've ever heard that. Have you guys ever heard of that before? Am I the only one? Do I just live under a rock? Let me know. Putting aside all things lettuce, this next part is basically me going back in again and rendering all the darker areas of the art piece, adding more tonal contrast, more depth, because we try to be profound out here. Not really, honestly. But anyways, so yeah, so it's just going back in. Currently I'm doing his hair, and speaking of hair, in my previous video I mentioned wanting to be better at hair, and I think this is a pretty good representation of why. I was purely going off of vibes here, and yeah, just vibing, not really know what I was really doing. I think there's definitely a lot of room for improvement, so yeah. New Year's resolution! Following the pattern, I'm going in again with an even darker shade of gray, black, maybe gray. Anyways, just a darker something. And rendering the darkest spots of the art piece, which usually tends to be the eyes, the nose, and maybe sometimes the ears and the hair. Can't forget about her. Next up on the drawing itinerary of all things shadows, I am going in and shading the creases in the clothes. And I don't know about you guys, but for some reason I always have a much harder time shading in clothes, like rendering clothes rather than body parts, people's. I don't know why, but yeah, I'm curious to know what you guys think and whether you guys have the same issue, or maybe it's just me and I'm on an island of my own. I want to hear what you think. Yes, you, I'm talking to you here. Let me know if we are twinning. Speaking of problems with rendering clothes, I had a bit of an issue here trying to make the shirt render around the chest area look like pectoral muscles, like a very nicely muscled man. But for some reason, as I was rendering, it kept looking like he had a man boob. Nothing wrong for man boob, but just not the vibe I was going for here. I think I managed to capture the vibe of a well-muscled man, but you can be the judge of that. The next parts are basically me going back in again with, I believe this time, truly a black shade, going back into the hair because I realized while I was shading the rest of the art piece that the hair was just not dark enough. And they were starting to look like they were salt and peppered. And there's nothing wrong with a salt and peppered gentleman, but that was not the reference photo that I was referencing. So in the spirit of trying to stay true to the said reference photo, I went back in, and that's basically what the next parts are about. In the photo, she looks like she has this like gorgeous mane of windswept hair, and I tried my best to render that. However, me personally, I think it started looking a little bit like I don't know, like frizz on a rainy day, on a humid day, kind of like what my hair looks like when I first wake up in the morning. But that's okay, because I didn't know how else I was supposed to render the windswept hair look. And I think that going back in to add some like highlights in the hair really kind of helped to make it look like there's, I don't know, like light going through it. And speaking of highlights, we are almost at the end of our journey today, and I'm going in to draw in the highlights, the literal highlights of the piece, which were in the eyes and on the lips. This is the final result. Let me know in the comments below what you think, but more importantly, let me know if you knew that lettuce could refer to a man's hairs. Be honest here, people. And of course, if you want to make sure you get your weekly dose of Yappuccino, make sure to click that button. You know what button I'm talking about. But for now, I'll chat you next time.